Our Law and Justice segment tonight. So the memo's out. President Trump declassified it on Friday. We covered the details on the show last week. This weekend, liberals did everything they could, short of having a stroke, to try to discredit the devastating information contained in the memo. Why, I'm not sure. You'd think when a government spies on private citizens for political reasons, when government bureaucrats use the power of surveillance to try to destroy a presidential candidate that they simply don't like, you would think that would be equally condemned from people on both sides of the aisle. Sadly, that was not the case this weekend. You heard similar excuses for the misbehavior of the FBI from former Hillary staffer Kevin Walling in the previous segment. But make no mistake, the allegations in this memo are a violation of our rights as American citizens, and the perpetrators need to be held accountable. With me now, Republican Congressman from Oklahoma's 5th District, Representative Steve Russell. Congressman, thanks for coming on the show, sir.
You bet.
All right, Congressman, first of all, we went over at the beginning of the show the 5 top revelations in this memo, but what do you consider, from your stance in Congress, what do you consider to be the most damning revelation in this?
Well, I think it's very clear when you look at what Andrew McCabe said, that without this dossier, they would never have issued the authorization for FISA and extension of FISA warrants. So this is a number 2 man in the FBI saying that the dossier had an impact. Okay, we take him at his word, and that is what has created a lot of the concern. Now you see those on the other side of the aisle saying, oh, well, we don't want you to release the memo because it might divulge sources and methods, which it did not. And then now it's released, they say, oh, well, there was nothing in it, and it really didn't matter. Well, did it or didn't it? According to the number 2 man in the FBI, he said that the warrants would have never been granted without the dossier as a part of that equation.
Right, and James Comey, former FBI director, his reaction to the release of this memo was, that's it? That's all you've got? And that scares me a lot, Congressman. Let me ask you, do you believe that criminal charges should be filed against any of the individuals who abuse their positions of power in our government to, I guess, use this surveillance against private citizens?
I'm very concerned when we see folks like Mr. Strzok and others. We see a pattern here, not just with him, but over a period of time. Americans are not stupid. They see missing documents. And then in a later investigation, something unrelated, they see missing emails. And then they see now missing texts. We're not stupid. The American people are not stupid. But the good antiseptic to all of this type of thing is a little bit of salt and a little bit of light. We've seen that now with the memo being released. I think it's important that we ask all of those types of questions. And I am encouraged somewhat that the other side of the aisle now seems to be interested in oversight and interested in not leaking information. But where was that earlier? Where was that oversight earlier with missing documents, with missing emails, with missing texts? And now I've read both of the memos. One the public is fully aware of, the other not yet. There will, in my estimation, some things have to be redacted out of the ones that the Democrats want to release, which I find interesting because the memo that I read that the Republicans wanted to release had been properly vetted. So that's up to the president. We'll see where that goes. As I read it, the hyperbole was striking. It wasn't so much, okay, event A happened and event B, therefore event C. Didn't see that in this memo. It was typical, admit nothing, deny everything, make counter-accusation. Very sad. But let's release it. Let's give the public a chance to see that. However, I do think that there will be portions of that will have to be redacted.
Was there anything in the Democratic memo that you read, the one that has not yet been released to the public, was there anything in that memo that negates the revelations that all of us were able to see in the Republican-created memo that was released on Friday?
Well, I can't divulge the content of it because we're just not allowed to do that. But what I would like to stress is that you had Andrew McCabe say that the dossier was central to FISA warrants being granted. That's a very key point. So regardless of how they try to frame up time and events or whatever it might be, it's crystal clear that if you are a FISA judge and you're going with the information that you have and that this was a part of whether or not the warrants would be granted, and then now we see through the Republican memo that has been released, where there's smoke, there's fire, and where there's flame, there's certainly danger, and I think we see all three.
Right. Do you believe that the only way to truly clear up this sort of party back and forth, that the Republicans present something and the Democrats present something to counter it. Do you believe that the only way to clear that up would be to release the actual FISA applications to the public?
Well, I think that there's a fine balance between needed oversight, which we have to do. It is our responsibility in government. But there's also a means to protect things that are unrelated. And so as we weave this careful line, we have to protect the things that are unrelated as they might spill into the areas that we're trying to get to the bottom of. But Mr. Strzok, as you pointed out earlier, just happens to be where there was, server problems, and happens to be where there was denial about, Mrs. Clinton never knew anything. It wasn't while she was Secretary of State, and Miss Abedin didn't know. Well, in my own line of questioning on the Oversight and Government Reform Committee, we proved that that was false, and that opened up all kinds of things about this additional laptop. So here we are once again. The Americans are like, gosh, you see, missing documents, missing emails, now missing text between Mr. Strzok and Ms. Page. At some point, the American public, they want to know, hey, is there anybody up there that is overseeing government? And the answer to that is yes. And people can frame it however they want in the media. They can make counter-accusations in true fashion, the old playbook, admit nothing, deny everything, make counter-accusation. It doesn't change what has been unearthed. And we do have a responsibility to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. We will continue to do that.
And do you believe, one last question, sir, do you believe that it will lead to any criminal charges? Were their laws broken? Especially, I guess, in the situation where the FISA court judge was not told the truth about the dossier, the fact that he wasn't told it was paid for by Hillary Clinton, the DNC. He wasn't told about Christopher Steele's political biases. Do you believe that criminal charges will be filed against anyone?
Well, I don't know about that. I think as people would investigate and look, they would have to have a basis and evidence towards that. But it does bring up the question, those that were pushing for criminal charges on people that now maybe might not be warranted. I mean, if I were the attorney teams of Mr. Manafort or Mr. Page or others, I would have an awful lot to work with right now.
Right, and it'll certainly be interesting to see how this unfolds as the investigation continues. Congressman Russell, thank you for coming on the show, sir. I appreciate it.